Hey everybody, Tim Van Orden, and it's time for an update. I mentioned in my last video that I was going to start a new series called Where Do I Begin? Because so much has changed. And although I use my beginning process to do everything that I'm about to describe in this video, it is very difficult for me to present to you a complex linear narrative of what it is that I'm up to, because what I'm doing is anything but linear. It is anything but planned. I'm engaged in what I would call an evolutionary experiment. And what I mean by evolutionary is that I don't know how it's going to evolve. It is simply random selection. I engage in lots of different experiments, and some of them succeed, some of them fail, and over time, statistically, those that succeed end up moving into the next generation of my activities and engagements. And those that fail, no matter how much I want them to succeed, are discarded. So much of my process, much of my thinking is in this state of statistical evolution with these very gentle engagements, so that I have lots and lots of data to work with when I eventually decide to move in one direction and not the other. So let's do a little bit of a rewind to the last video, which I made around my birthday, 24 years vegan, and tell you what's happened since then. A big part of this new process for me is to keep my goals in a liquid state. And what I mean by that is that I don't ever want to get set on a particular outcome at a particular time in a particular event. So rather than a goal being a destination, they act more like lighthouses for me. I set a goal off in the future, not to arrive at, but to simply inform the process. What type of experiment am I going to run? Since this last video, one of the lighthouse goals that I've set was the U.S. Masters Mile Championships in Rochester, New York, which took place, I think, the third weekend in May. And in 2019, as many of you know, I ran in the U.S. Masters Mile Championships. I won the 50 and over category, and I broke the American record. And they haven't had this race since 2019, so I would be going back as the defending champion for 50 and over. But nothing that I have been doing is hard or fast or even running related of late. I'm doing anything but lots of running. So can I transform myself from a skier engaged in high volume cross training and bring that into the realm of fast running on the road? Is that possible? I don't know. What would it look like? So I put this lighthouse goal on the calendar, May 20 something. We're going to run a mile. And maybe that informs our training. Maybe I train a bit differently. Maybe I start adding a few things, removing a few others, to see if I can get myself into the experience of a miler. And basically, I did a bit more running. I got myself to gradually move in the running direction. But I find that I'm not as interested or compelled to run as I was in the past. So I didn't do a lot. I did quite a bit of my treadmill at a 15.6% angle, where I do my Bigfoot light walking, which is somewhat of a lunge, but not a full lunge, maybe a 30% lunge. Did a lot of that. Did some running, still did my roller skiing, still did lots of elliptical machine, which you can see right there behind the curtain. So heading into that race, I didn't really have any expectations, because I didn't take on the training that most people would do to become a fast miler. In fact, I did the opposite. From April 15th to May 15th was my biggest block of training ever in my life. I logged 95 hours in those 4 weeks. So heading into this race, I was not tapered. From May 15th up until the race, I did decrease my volume a bit, but not as much as I would have in the past when I was strictly a runner. So we have gigantic volume, much of it not related to running at all. I haven't done a fast race, so I don't know how to approach a mile. It's a hilly course with an uphill finish, uphill start. So you've got to practice your effort. You've got to practice getting your heart rate up into a particular zone. In 2019, I had run a mile 3 times before the U.S. Championships. The first time, I really didn't know how to feel it out. The second time, I got a little better. The third time, okay, I think I know what the effort feels like. And here we go, U.S. Championships. Let her rip. So even though my training in 2019 was mostly walking, doing my Bigfoot walking and not running, I did have 3-mile races to kind of gear me up to what the effort should be and how to run the race. So going into Rochester, I didn't have any of those races. So I wasn't sure quite how to run a race on a hilly course. So I started very slowly, very conservatively. I was running probably 5:20 pace for the first quarter mile, and a huge group of people pulled away, and then we came to a downhill. I didn't open up as fast as I thought I would. I was running maybe a 4:50 pace downhill, which is slower than my American record in 2019. So that was a little confusing to me, but again, I didn't have any mile experience this year or since 2019, so that's not surprising. And then maybe 2/3 of the way into the race, I realized that I had a lot in the tank. I was in no way exhausted. So I started picking up the pace, but then we're coming to the uphill finish. The last quarter mile is all uphill. And I pushed pretty hard, but again, never got my heart rate into a mile heart rate zone. I got it into the heart rate that I sustained for a half marathon, like mid to low 160s, nothing that you'd see in a mile, which it should be closer to high 170s or even low 180s. So I ended up running a 5:04, which some people might think is disappointing considering I was running in the 440s in 2019, but that's very, very promising to me because of the massive volume that I had leading up to that race. So I was pretty tired, and the fact that I didn't have any experience running a mile prior to the race, pushed too late in the race, started too slow, didn't really open up in the downhills. So I'm confident that I've got low to mid 450s in me right now, which is good considering that the American record for 55 and over, which I will turn 10 months from now, is 449. So if I can practice a bit more next year, I've got a good shot of breaking the record for 55 and over. So I'm very pleased with the results, even though I didn't break 5 minutes. So that was the end of May, and then I went back basically into ski training with a little bit more mountain running thrown in because the U.S. Mountain Championships were coming up on July 2nd, which is this past weekend. So I thought, all right, that will be my next Lighthouse goal. If I make it, great. If I don't, that's okay too. Either way, I'll be advancing my fitness and moving towards my main goal, which is now the World Championships in Nordic skiing next March. So everything that I'm doing is about keeping my volume high for skiing with these other races kind of thrown in to keep it interesting. So I hopped in a few mountain races prior to the U.S. Championships. I did the High Rock run up in the Catskills where I finished first and felt pretty good. Again, no taper, high volume. That was a 22-hour week when I did that race. Then I jumped in the Mount Greylock half marathon, which is one of the toughest half marathons out there. You climb close to 3,000 feet in the first 3 miles. Actually, you climb most of that in the second and third mile. The first mile is uphill, but not steep. So very, very steep course. and then you basically run down with some ups for the next 10. It's super technical, super challenging, and some really good guys there this year, very competitive. Sean Donegan and Brian Rizicki, both two of the top trail runners in the Northeast. I was running with Brian Rizicki when I slipped off a rotting bridge and landed on some exposed rebar, like a metal spike, and it went right into my foot, which was exceptionally painful, and it happened at about 6 miles, so I wasn't sure what to do. In a race, it's hard to think clearly. It's hard to not be in fight or flight, especially when you're in pain, especially when you're having a really good race, which I was. And I decided to just suck up the pain and try to keep moving, hoping that the pain would dissipate, hoping that the injury wasn't severe. But it felt like a tear. It felt like I tore my flesh. Anyway, I just focused on getting through each step and ended up finishing that race. So ran 7 miles on the injury, which in the end probably wasn't too smart, but finished second overall with a pretty good time, considering I couldn't run that fast for the final 7 miles. But that got me confident for the U.S. Championships, but due to the injury, I wasn't really able to run much at all. So I went into the U.S. Championships this past weekend knowing that I was pretty fit, but also knowing that my legs were not used to running, and I wasn't sure how the injury would hold up. So the uphill went really well. Myself and the 4 other top 50 and over runners in the country, we all made it to the summit of Whiteface Mountain in New York at the same time, and it was a brutal climb. Probably one of the most difficult climbs I've ever done. Just relentlessly steep, some sections at 60%. And then the downhill started, and the 5 of us were pretty much a train, and I re-injured my foot on a rock early in the downhill. It was very, very dangerous, technical downhills. Some of the most dangerous I've ever run down. And then hit my foot again. The pain was pretty intense, and I was concerned that I was going to really hurt it badly because I still had most of the downhill to go. So I backed off, ended up 3rd place for 50 to 54 age group, which I won't say is disappointing. I was pretty excited about that because, again, this is a Lighthouse goal. I didn't really train specifically for this race. I wasn't able to run much for the few weeks leading up to the race due to the injury, so I'm very happy with that. The next U.S. Mountain Running Championships is this coming weekend, a week apart. The first at Whiteface was up and downhill. The next one is simply up, like a vertical kilometer, at Loon Mountain in New Hampshire, but I'm not sure if I'm going to run it because my foot is still not great. So with a Lighthouse goal, you're not really attached to the race. So even though it's a U.S. Championship, and even though I've got a chance of doing really well, because I did great on the climb, and the climbing doesn't hurt my foot much, there are other races. There's other things to do. I've got the escarpment race in the Catskills coming up July 31st, and I'd love to break 3 hours there. I have the course record for over 50. It's like 3:05 something. And it'd be fun to go under 3 hours. I think I can do it, but only if my foot is healed. So if I go to the U.S. Championship this weekend, I may injure it yet again, because there is a bit of downhill, and it's pretty sketchy. And then I may be out for the rest of the summer. So with a Lighthouse goal, you just make a calculation. Is it worth it? Maybe, maybe not. And in the next few days, I will make that decision. And if I don't go to the U.S. Champs, that's fine. There are other races. And again, it's all leading towards the World Championships next year, which is also a Lighthouse goal. But it's informing the majority of what I do in my training. So related to that, at the end of June, I had 455 hours for the year. So I'm still on course for another 900 plus hour year. And that's exciting to me because I really haven't taken a break. 2021 was 938 hours, and I pretty much just continued at that volume. So that's 2 hours and 45 minutes a day on average, every day. And I love it. I'm not getting tired. I'm getting stronger. I'm getting faster. My skiing is getting better. My upper body strength is improving. I did a set of 16 pull-ups the other day in the midst of 80 pull-ups total was the workout. And 16 was not a maximum. It was hard, but I could have done more. But my goal is never to push myself to my maximum. That's the main focus of this training. Just gentle engagement, again and again and again. Because if I try to hit a maximum, other than being in a race, I'm going to get scared. And I'm going to back off. I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to think about the pain. I'm going to think about the measurement, like this is my max, this is my limit. And my identity, my ego doesn't like that. It doesn't like being measured. So as long as I engage in these gentle approaches, avoiding maximum, and just simply getting out there again and again and again, I'm watching my fitness improve, and I'm also watching my interest in movement improving. There's never a day where I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got to work out, or oh my God, I've got to work out 2 hours and 45 minutes, or oh my God, I've got to do pull-ups. I look forward to it. I love it. I really do. And that's so exciting to me. So I'm training without a plan, other than engage. Don't worry about the distance. Don't worry about the time. Don't worry about the number. Just put yourself in it and see what happens. Your body will decide when it's done. So that's where I am right now, still experimenting with beginnings. And I will work on that series. It's just hard for me to step outside of the story. It seems too simple to share, because it is so simple. And there's a part of my brain that says, yeah, nobody will even know what to do with it because it's just too simple. But my God, does it work. All right. I'll check back soon. Peace.